All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Growing Up Alien. We have another exciting Bigfoot episode, and this is like take four for this evening's talk. So if everyone can find their mojo again, we're in business. Like we had echoes, and we never had this. Like, and it's just been. This was supposed to start in like half an hour ago. So here we are. Here we are, reasonably glitch free as glitch free as we can be, and I'd like to introduce our great speakers tonight. Of course, we have Frank Chille back. We also have two great new guests who are just like Bigfoot enthusiasts and have had some amazing experiences with Bigfoot. We have Kathleen up on top. We have Kathleen, and we also have on the bottom Cindy. This is brilliant. Hello, Cindy. This is awesome. This is awesome. So I guess whoever would like to begin, start at the beginning, I can hand you the stage.
Well, if I can, I'd like to welcome both Cindy and Kathleen to this wonderful sharing tonight. And I have to say that Kathleen was the first person I've ever met who introduced me to aspects of the forest people that I never considered to be as relevant as it truly is since knowing her. That they are here, co-inhabitants of our planet, with an attitude that they want us to be aware of them and that they are longtime inhabitants of the planet Earth. And they've interacted with different aspects of civilization throughout time and towards more of a beneficial degree than, let's say, people of modern times have ever had. And it was Kathleen who introduced me to the concept of communicating with them mentally through thought bubbles and communicating with them also verbally, and how their aspects of family was very similar to ours, and how they wanted to reach out to us and interact with us in more of a cooperative basis and measure. And I'd like to have Kathleen tell us about her experiences and how she started.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess that's my cue.
That's your, that's your...
Okay. How it started was, oddly enough, I just started having lights getting turned on in my house all the time. As simple as that. It ended up being a young female teenager. They like buttons just like ours. The big thing to remember is they really are us. If we hadn't have had our genes scrambled, that would be us. That's why they call us their big, they refer to themselves as our big brother. And they care about us as much as you would care about any relative that you have. But it's really important to understand that just as humans are diverse, there's good ones, bad ones, tall ones, short ones, happy ones, depressed ones, some that can't follow the rules. They're no different than us. That's really the that's the big takeaway. They are the same as we are. They're just a little hairier and a little taller. Well, a little heavier too. I've known a few of them. It's like once you meet one, you meet another. It's really important though, if you remember one thing from listening to this, is that everybody is supposed to have their own experience. You don't need to believe anything that I say. Go find out for yourself. You will believe you. You don't need to believe me. The one that I talk to the most, I call him Henry. Doesn't matter what you call him. I could call him a color if I wanted to. Yeah, Henry. Henry's old and wise. Another one I hang out with, his name is Frost. You have a sketch of him also.
Actually, let me pull those
Frost
up.
Is more like a guardian. What's that?
I'm going to pull those up so you can share.
Okay.
Advanced.
I can tell you about each one.
Yeah. So you can see who comes up first.
I need to do a new one to Henry because he's not really quite that squat and round.
Here we go. So who is this?
Yeah, wait for that to go away. That's Frost.
That's Frost.
And Frost is always, yeah, they're funny guys. They like a good joke. Frost is a Yeti. He came originally from the Himalayas. They travel and enjoy travel as much as we do. We might take a plane or a boat or an Uber. They will either walk or call a ship. It's important to know that not every community, just like the Amish, not all of them believe in using ships. Some of them believe in only walking. Some of them hang out more underground than above ground. Some of them, well, we are their entertainment. We are pretty entertaining, though. Frost is kind of like an off-white. He's very old. You can see he's pretty wrinkly. Yeah, he's a funny guy. Yeah, that was when I first met him. Apparently he's been watching me for a while. That's what they do.
Wow.
Okay,
So
put up
now
the next one.
get the next picture here.
Go ahead and ask questions.
So the languages, where is this? There should be another one coming up. There it is.
Okay. Okay, that was my first foot, and I just did his face. He's not around anymore. His name was, well, I called him Leroy. He was very depressed over an issue of losing his sister, and he is no longer with us.
Oh, he passed. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a really big nose.
Yes. I mean,
But I never
one thing I was surprised was they have human faces.
Well, there's different races, sub races, just like we have white people, black people, yellow people, olive people, brown people, mocha people, really, really dark people. They're all different. And around the world, I think I was told there were 38 different sub races. In Vietnam, there's 3-foot little black ones. Wow. And more on the East Coast, we have the ancient ones. They look more human-like. On the West Coast, we have the Sasquatch. They're a little more of an ape look. Okay. It just varies. And their women, you got to remember, their women can be even more beautiful than our women. They vary greatly.
Wow. I've never known. I mean, because I'm thinking the one like the Sasquatch out west, they look kind of like large, ape-like creatures. But no, so
they're more hairy and a little more beastie.
Yes, that's very different.
I'm not sure who that is. Yeah, I don't know if that's a foot or not. Yeah, it probably is. Yeah, that's just somebody I met in passing. I really don't know who that is.
Right.
I've met so many different in my my rambling that I don't know everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
And Kathleen, I believe. Kathleen, I believe you had said too that one of the methods that they have for movement and for relocating is they could teleport utilizing trees.
They're not actually teleporting. I came across the word somewhere. They called it slip walking. That's how it's so hard for us to see them. And I don't know if they're like zipping in like a dog. Think of a dog. Most people have a dog or a cat. Their visual spectrum is massive. Our visual spectrum is quite limited, just like hearing. Think dog whistle. You can blow a dog whistle and most people aren't going to hear it. Some people will, but generally speaking, our hearing range is also very small. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not right beside you. If you know anybody that has a game camera, deer, I saw one, there's a guy not very far from here that he has game cameras out all the time. And there's these things called rods. I don't know, but they kind of just kind of float around. Deer see them. A deer will stop eating and look at it for a few minutes and go back to eating. We cannot see those with our naked eye, but the game cameras can, just because they're full spectrum. So if you want to take pictures, you have to use a full spectrum camera. Like taking pictures of orbs, they show up on my full spectrum camera. They don't show up on I have an iPhone 10. I can't get anything on it. It just depends on the lenses in your camera. So experiment and you'll find stuff. And people are seeing stuff every day of the week now.
Wow.
Next picture.
Yeah. Oh, wait, that was the only 3 pictures that I had. Ha! So.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, one of the questions, how long do they live?
They vary greatly. Some of them can live, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but I've been told some of them are well over 1,000 years. That's not common, but it does happen. Why? I have no idea. And it might be a misnomer. I really don't know.
Wow.
But they're not short-lived like us.
Wow.
We had our chromosomes altered so we don't live as long.
Yeah, well,
and I read, because I read genetic crap all the time, and I read which chromosome it is, and it was altered and it shortened our lifespan. Yeah. We're not supposed to die at 70. We're not. Right. And I think now we're just starting to change that. Yeah. We'll see.
Right, we'll see. Right. So for languages, did they learn different languages and they have their own different language, I'd assume?
As far as I can tell, they have dialects. That's not the preferred way to talk. Like most, you know, off-worlders and below-worlders, they use telepathy.
Oh yeah.
And that's why the time of hiding was so important, because when you absorb the thoughts and feelings of the person that you're talking with, if they are terrified, you will feel that. It will hurt you. It'll be miserable. It's like a parent when their child gets hurt. That's how, you know what I mean? That's horrible.
Yeah.
That's probably the most horrible thing. And it just got to the point that so many people were freaking out all the time that they voted and they decided to do the time of hiding. Now, not all of them hid. That's important to remember. The Native American cultures have always embraced them. And I know recently one was dancing at what do you call it? It was not a powwow, some kind of a ritual that they did. But they were invited and they showed up and they danced with them. And they think it's completely normal to have their friends, because I view them as my neighbors. They're not strangers. They're my friends, because we hang out. We hang out. Yeah, it's good. Henry stood over me for a really long time when I was sleeping and guarded me. And I was kind of freaked out about that. And my question was, and he wouldn't answer for the longest time, what are you guarding me from? And the answer was myself, as I remembered things. Like, ooh, that was not the answer I wanted.
Oh my God.
But they're very polite. So he didn't come into the house. He annoyed me for like 3-4 months every single time. Is it okay if I come in your house? Do you mind if I come in your house? Are you sure you want me to come in your house? I'm like, I finally said, whoa, dude, please, for the love of God, don't ask again. Enough already with the manners.
Oh my God.
You're here. You're my friend. Everybody just wanders through randomly.
Kathleen, before you met Cindy, she was starting to have her own experiences, and I know that when she started interacting with you, it brought a lot of clarity to her own experiences and to what she was pursuing. Cindy, do you want to talk about your own initiation into this?
Sure. Hi, Frank.
Hi.
Well, it started probably 4 years ago. Now, of course, I'd always been interested in all kinds of things that you don't understand, everything that's mysterious and hidden and occult. And I was interested since I was young because I've had experiences of all different kinds. And I always said, if something's going to happen, it's going to happen to me because I experienced a lot. That said, I was interested in cryptids and Bigfoot and all of that, but not to the degree that all of a sudden one day I started to become almost obsessed with Bigfoot. Now, at the time, years ago, there was that Finding Bigfoot where a bunch of scientist guys and different people are going out in the woods and banging the trees with a stick and all that kind of stuff and trying to have little town meetings. And I thought that was interesting, and my sister and I would watch that and talk about it. But all of a sudden, I became very interested, almost in an odd way. I couldn't really understand why I suddenly had this passion. I wanted to know more. I needed to know more. I had the sudden interest in Bigfoot and Sasquatch and I just didn't understand it. And that's when I had a conversation with you, Frank. And Frank said, oh, I know a woman who communicates with Bigfoot. And I said, really? Oh, bring it on. Please let us communicate and talk to each other. And so he gave me her number, Kathleen, and we've been very good friends since. And we have a bond. And so we started talking about it, and I told her of my interest because suddenly I just was almost obsessed with Bigfoot in a weird way. And then she said, oh, well, Sin, she called me Sin, Sin, they've had an eye on you for about 2 years. And, the reason you're so interested in them all of a sudden is because they've reached out to you on a certain level. And that was very much true. I was soon to find out. And then we talked, remember, Kathleen, maybe a few hours. We had an intense conversation. And a few weeks later, right around the 4th of July, I'm sitting in my house, my former house, with my two dogs, Baru and Libby. It's a Saturday morning around 10:30 in the morning. And yeah, just a normal day. It was just me and the dogs. And all of a sudden, I hear the loudest roar, like an elephant's roar, but it was loud and it vibrated through the entire. I was not afraid. I didn't think something demonic, evil. I had this sense of it's okay. I know who these are. I know who this is. And it sounded like he was upstairs, but he wasn't upstairs through the whole house. So I'm looking at my dogs and they're looking at me. The one was an American bulldog and big guy. I called him my big guy, and a little corgi. And they're both looking at me like, no, Mom, it's not us. It's not us making that noise. And it was so loud. Lasted for about 10 minutes. And I'm just absorbing the whole thing. So then it stops. And I tell my sister Karen, and I tell her, Karen, you're not going to believe what happened to my nieces. And I'm telling them the whole story. And they're like, my nieces are like, Aunt Sin has a Bigfoot. You know, they're mocking me, having a good time. And they're laughing about it. And I said, and intuitively, I knew that they were going to get a visit. And I said, oh, not so quick. Don't mock me. I said, because you're going to get a visit. And sure enough, a few weeks later on Saturday, I don't know what it is about Saturday mornings, but it was a Saturday morning and they're in their house. Same exact experience. Juliana's upstairs I guess upstairs. My sister's in the shower. My brother-in-law was at the gym and my other niece was out. So it was just Karen and my niece Juliana. And all of a sudden they heard the same thing I heard, the loudest roar, you know, and it vibrated in the whole house for about 10 minutes. Juliana's calling out, Dad, is that you? Is that you? Because she thought he was coughing or choking. She didn't know what was going on. Aaron was in the shower, my sister. She comes out with a towel wrapped around her and she's like, Jules, is that you? What's wrong? And they both heard it. And all of a sudden, Juliana said, Aunt Sin. It's her Bigfoot. So, and I call him Jarro. The reason I call him Jarro is one day I was in my car and then I had another experience of face to face. Actually, I've had more than one, but I was in my car and I was like, okay, I feel you. I felt him around me. I didn't see him so much in 3D, but I felt him. And I said, what is your name? You know, can you tell me more? And all of a sudden I got this. Now it wasn't a voice. It wasn't communication, like telepathic, but it was like a message that was implanted. You know, you just intuitively know. And what he told me is his name was Jarro. And Jarro meant a jar of wisdom. And he told me that he was a jar of wisdom. He's like middle age towards a senior, and he was full of wisdom, and we were connected, and he was going to teach me. So that was very interesting. That's how it started. But then the following, I guess it was December, it was around Christmas time. A colleague had bought herself a Groupon, and she told me about it for acupuncture, and she suggested that I get it as well. So I bought myself this session. And you have 3 sessions, and the first 2 sessions were fine, normal sessions. But the third session, they had asked me if I wanted to continue with them. And I said, no, you know, this was just a Christmas gift to myself, and I'm fine. And so they put me into the cold room. And when I say cold room, I was so cold and freezing. And, you know, you just have like the little sheet around you, and the little needles all over, and I couldn't move. And I'm sitting there and I was shaking and I was cold, and I'm thinking, I cannot wait until this is over. But yet it was relaxing because you heard the music and all that. And that's when Jarro came to me. All of a sudden, his face is in my face. And it was not a 3D, but I could see him. I wish I was an artist like Kathleen, because I saw him. But I saw everything. I saw what he looked like. He showed me his profile. He turned his head. The image I got was almost, what was that mountain guy? There was a movie with this mountain guy, and it kind of reminded me of that. And his hair is salt and pepper. You know, he's chestnut, but he has grayish silver on the sides and on his face, and he's very human looking. And when he came to me, all of a sudden, now remember, I was so cold that I couldn't wait for the session to be over. I was freezing, and it was like he put an invisible blanket on me. I have never in my life felt that way. He put this invisible blanket on me. It was like I had the warmest, cuddly blanket, and somebody had given me hot cocoa to drink or something. That's how I felt. Now, there were no words exchanged at that time, but I felt so much love from him. And I gave him love. And it was a interaction that I've never had in my entire life. And that started my journey. From there, he is around me. He gives me clues when I'm out, and I live in the suburbs, but when I'm in a place where there's a lot of forest or a lot of land, I have visitations, and this brings me to, and I have some pictures, brings me to, I guess it was late September, early October 2022. And I was with my friend Nick, and we went out to Northern California. And before we went to this place that was known to have Bigfoot and Sasquatch near Mount Shasta, we were at this campground, and we had a fire, and this guy was supposed to be meeting us. And so we're around the campfire, and Nick starts asking me about Bigfoot and about Jarro. So I was talking to him about it, and I said, oh, well, sometimes they come to you. I told him my experience, but I said, sometimes they come to you, they will make sounds, or he roared when he came to me the first time. And then his friend called his phone because he was meeting us. And he calls him on this little flip phone. And through the little flip phone, you could hear Jarro roar. Start roaring. And it was so loud. Nick heard it, and he was like, oh, what's this? And I just smiled. I said, well, that's my Jarro. I call him my Jarro. I'm his human, but I call him my Jarro. And you could hear him through the phone. And it was so loud. And the guy he was talking to, Nick, said, Ted, do you hear that? And he's like, yeah, I can hear that. So he used the phone to communicate. And then after the conversation was over, Nick went in to get directions, and I was by the fire, but then I got a little spooked. So I went inside. Then I came out with Nick, and we're sitting by the fire, and we're talking again. And he said, oh, what's some other ways they communicate? And I said, well, I've heard that they will throw little rocks, pebbles, and stuff, make noises and stuff like that, so that that they're around. Well, the second I said that, all of a sudden, a big rock, now it wasn't thrown at me or at Nick, but a big rock hits the tree and lands right in front of us. And I said, oh, he's here. And we both felt like going to see him. And we both knew where he was. I knew he was to my right, about 150 feet. he knew the same thing, but we never went to see him. And to this day, Nick says to me, you know, Cindy, if I could go back, I would have taken your hand and we would have walked 150 feet and saw him. So those kind of experiences. Another time I was in the woods, I'm with my sister and we heard him. So, you know, I do hear him. As far as actual 3D, I've not seen him 3D. I've seen him in my mind's eye very clearly. I feel him. I communicate, but you know, there has been an issue I've been working with a block that I'm trying to get through this ever since, you know, not that I got that, I did not, but I was exposed to people who did, and I won't get into that today, but you know, I've been working on getting through all of that so I can communicate with him one-on-one, and I will. And so that's
Cindy, didn't you also say that you saw Jarro's footprints in the snow when you were in upstate New York?
I do have a footprint that I will share with you. It wasn't me personally, but a guy that I'm good friends with, I was dating, Anthony, went hunting, and he always wants me to know that he's around, whether I'm there or not. And Anthony was on a private property last year, this time, or November last year, and it's 1,000 acres, upstate New York, and he was by himself. He had his quad. He puts it at the edge of the property where the high grass are, and then he walked into the woods, and he was tracking a deer. And while he was there, he sensed something. Now, this is a guy, he's, you know, in his late 60s. He's been hunting since he was 12. He's never really seen anything. He thinks it's all interesting, but he's one of those, he's a little bit skeptical about things, and that's fine. But he all of a sudden felt he was not alone. And in his mind, he's thinking a bear. He's like, oh, there must be a bear, because he could hear somebody like their breath and like the scent, and the swampy area was bubbling. And he looked down, and there was this very, very big footprint, and there were a bunch of toes, and it was very big. And I was actually mad at him because he didn't put his foot next to it to show how big it was.
Yes.
So
yes.
I was annoyed with him. I was like, you're supposed to cast it or take a picture and put your foot down. So I was a little annoyed with him. I'm like, oh, why did you do that? But he was like, well, I was tracking a deer. That was important to me. So, but at least I did get a picture, and that was one of the pictures I wanted to show you.
Yeah.
And see what you know, whether you think it's a human foot, or I know it wasn't a human foot. He was hunting. It's 1,000-acre private property. I know him well, so I know he wouldn't fake it. And you know, it was just very interesting. So it was a validation that, Sin, I'm still here. I'm with you. And
well, what we can do is when you send me the I've actually seen it. It was last year you showed me, but if you can send it to me again, I'll put it in a short, and we'll just link it to this video so people can see it separately. And then you know, I'm sure you'll probably get a little more, you know, traffic, so people, hey, there's a Bigfoot, you know. So
well, the only thing is you can't tell how big it is because they're to show, you know, that it's large or small. But it's something that he had showed me indirectly through my friend Anthony.
Right.
Cindy, was there a series of photographs or a series of footprints, or just that one?
Well, just that one. However, I do have a number of orbs. When I was in Northern California, I have, you know, pictures of large rocks, stones on top of each other. Now, we were in a national forest, and we were deep in the woods, and it was at least, we were at this beautiful lake, and I'd say it was pretty deep in the national forest. And there are orbs. I have pictures of white orbs, pictures of blue orbs. I know I've shown Kathleen, Frank, I don't know if I've shown them to you. Andrea, I don't think I've shown the orbs to you or not. I'm not sure. But when I see something, I always have this intuitive feeling like, look here, take a picture there. I also have a really cool picture that I know I've showed Frank and Kathleen. Andrea, I don't know if I've showed it to you, but it was during this trip in California with Nick, and the sun was setting, but an intuitive voice said, Sin, take a picture here. And I took a picture, and it's this huge spear. Remember that?
Yeah,
and
sure.
See the trees under it?
Yes.
Very interesting. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's very interesting. And it's something I don't believe it was the camera.
No.
Because a lot of people try to debunk it, and I'm great with that. You go ahead, debunk all you want, because I think it's okay to do that, but I haven't been able to figure it out.
Cindy, since you became friendly with Kathleen, has Kathleen helped to sharpen your exposure to an understanding of your connection with Jarro?
From day one, yeah. Although I had this passion for Bigfoot that I hadn't had earlier, I was interested in everything,
Yes.
But all of a sudden it was all about Bigfoot. It was all about Sasquatch. It was, I was just fascinated. I couldn't get enough information. And of course, I have a very deep love and connection with Native American indigenous tribes, and studied at one time with a medicine woman, and I, different experiences in the past. But I feel I have a connection in that way with Jarro, and he was coming back to reconnect, I think. So, but when I met Kathleen through you, when I was connected with Kathleen, that's when everything kind of shifted. And all of a sudden, I was starting to understand a little bit more of what my experiences meant. And, and she would talk about Henry and a friend of hers I'm friends with as well. And she would talk about her foot. And, and then Kathleen would have these experiences where she's off planet and she's involved in these meetings and sessions. And now I can't say for sure I'm involved in them, but I have a feeling it might happen, or I might be.
Kathleen, do the your experiences off planet as the Bigfoot are also involved there when you go?
Yeah, we're on a committee together.
Okay. So even not the AT Bigfoots, but the actual Bigfoots that live on Earth are connected.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, representatives of different races, it's important to have the perspective of different races when you're making a decision.
Oh, so what could you give us an example of some of the meetings that you've had with your Bigfoot friends on the?
Yeah. I'm not sure where I was. I usually they were about once a month for a while, not exactly a month, but about once a month for a while. And I would usually know when I was going to go, and sometimes I'd remember stuff and sometimes I wouldn't. Right. I remember vividly the cafeteria because the folks I hung out with, because they're all jokesters. And there was one dude, and he didn't have ears, but he had glasses. And I have a sketch of him somewhere. I'm like, I couldn't figure out why, what's up with the glasses? He has no ears. Well, the glasses were a prop. It was a joke. He was just making a joke. And he's walking around wearing funny like the funny glasses. Yeah, he was just wearing funny glasses all the time. And in the cafeteria, I don't know why, but like if you ever go to a kindergarten room, they have those miniature little tables. For some reason, I chose a miniature little table to sit at, and it was really, really tall. And we just sat around and we were just howling. But they had, that's why I have such trouble with, because anything that Bill Gates touches is evil, of course. But food coming out of machines sucked out of the air is commonplace in the galaxy. And they had big machines and little machines, and you just kind of push buttons and tell it what you wanted, and the food spit out. And that was pretty cool. And some of these machines were like massive. And in the hallways, there was, it was a Star Wars bar scene.
Yes.
So you never knew what you were going to see. So yeah, it was just a, we're not done with the committee. This is a long-term kind of a thing. It involved ending the time of hiding, which is official. It's been over for about 2 years now. And now we're working on what is a safe way to introduce the forest people to the humans that's not going to scare the pants off of both of them. Because humans are we're one of the most dangerous creatures on the face of the earth. When we are scared, we are dangerous. And they've been shot at and shot a lot, and they really frown on that, just saying. So we're working out, different ideas of, with some safe distance between, where would it be safe to approach people, what to do, what to not do. Because, the social etiquette is pretty similar, but they don't wave. Like, because we would wave, if we were across the field, I'd just wave at you. They don't do that. That's foreign to them because they use telepathy and we're dull. We're not stupid. We're just different. Right. But yes. It's integration. And that's why we're seeing so much like the UFO activity. I just watched a video before we jumped on here, and it said it's the inner Earth people. He said, let's just call them the Nordics to make it simple, even though that's not accurate. That's a military word. Anyway, something's coming up and we have to work together on something. So that's why there's so many things that has to do with the new administration. A little over my head, but yeah, if you go anywhere at any time, you will see stuff. When you're outside, look up. When you're in a garden or a forest or a park, look around, and you're going to see it in the corner of your eyes to start with. Yeah. You'll see movement or shadows or colors. There's so many different things. We think we're like, we're lone man out on the island. There's no other life there. That's so not true. There's all kinds of life, all different kinds of things. And once you start interacting with the forest people, then you're going to start bumping into elementals and other things. And it just keeps building and building and building. The world is an awesome place.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, actually, I was going to say, Eek is actually, when we first started this video, he came in because he's actually eating. He was having just like some kind of snack. So he's being back at me right now. He's laughing. So he's actually right here. And I know some of our viewers can probably see or sense, but he's right back at me. And he sits right, like usually he's kind of because I'm on the bed. So I come on the bed because he can kind of sit with me. So he likes to be with, it's just nice to have family, because it's very lonely. And he's in the military. So I was wondering, and he won't get involved too much, I know tonight. Do you think, Kathleen, that if we have the Terrans meet up with Nordics, as you said, Nordic extraterrestrials or Nordic inner Earth people, that will somehow ease them into becoming more comfortable with the Bigfoot?
We don't really have a choice. Well, there's something everybody knows. Everybody knows there's something brewing. Nobody knows what it is. I could take a couple of wild guesses, but they would only be guesses. But whatever it is, it involves everybody. So it's very important that we work out a few wrinkles. So we don't have a choice.
Yeah. Well, I'm ready.
Don't know what to say.
I'm ready. I'm
ready. Everybody says they're ready, but yes.
I was going to ask you, what do you feel that Jarro wants to communicate to Cindy, and in what aspect does he want to work openly with her?
Okay.
That he loves her.
It's
that simple. It's the same message. It's the same message Jesus taught, Buddha taught. Yeah, what is that? White calf Indian woman, same thing.
Yes.
It's the same message. Be kind. Yeah, my shirt. Be kind.
Do you feel that Cindy will be introducing Jarro and perhaps his family and his clan to the public? Is that one of the aspects of Cindy's connection with him?
It doesn't quite work that way. Everybody makes their own decisions. So it wouldn't be him introducing his family. It would be anybody in his, I guess you could say his tribe, his village, because they have communities. They're not necessarily related, but they have communities, and whoever would want to do that would do that. But he wouldn't throw his kids under the bus.
Kathleen, also, I wanted to ask you something you shared with me was extraordinary regarding you had hurt yourself at work, and your friend had your forest friend had known that you had hurt yourself and asked if he could come into your home and help heal you. And the way you described it was a beautiful
He didn't really
experience.
ask me. Yeah, I thought it was because I've seen him a few times, but that one was the closest and the most vivid. It was the middle of the night, and I thought it was my daughter coming in from work and using her flashlight and coming down the hall because she worked real late. And the dogs barked. I had 2 dogs then. The dogs barked, jumped off the bed, ran down the hall, and come right back in the bedroom. Like, okay, it must be her. And I could see the flashlight come down the hall. And as they got to the doorway, and bear in mind, the doorway is a standard size, but there were 3 of them. And one of them was my Bigfoot friend, Henry. And the other one was another person that I knew that was much taller. And then there was, I could just call him the little guy. I don't know if he was like a drone gray kind of a thing or what, but it was like a medical team. And they had, they just showed up in my doorway, and I had no idea how they fit in the doorway, but it was cool. And I looked up the dogs. The dogs were up on the bed then. And then the little dude with a flashlight took the flashlight and shined it at the dogs. I guess they weren't on the bed. He shined it at the dogs. The dogs jumped up on the bed and immediately passed out asleep. And I'm like, well, that's really cool. And I lifted my head to say, hey, Henry. And just then the little dude, because he's my buddy, I wasn't even surprised to see him. But the little dude shined the light in my eyes, and then it was morning. But I had apparently, because I don't doctor, I had a head injury that I guess had to be repaired because it needed fixed. Anyway, I'm fine. but I didn't have any side effects of getting zapped. It was like in that movie, I can't think of it. Oh, with the flashy flash. And as soon as it hit and I could actually feel it hitting like the pupils of my eyes. And then I don't remember anything after that, but I was told later that the reason they had to do that was because it was my head, and I had to like lay really still for a long time afterwards. And they didn't want the dogs moving. They didn't want me moving. So I just rested. And when I woke up in the morning, I felt great. Yeah. So whatever they did worked.
I remember also you said, Kathleen, when you were shocked that they were in your home and could come into the doorway, and you wondered how they could do that because they're so large. And I believe you had said,
I said, how did he fit?
Yeah. And you said that he said to you, they have the ability to, the environment can accommodate their size, or they could accommodate their size to the environment.
Yeah, he said, and I quote, if I don't fit in the hallway, I just make the hallway bigger. Yes. Whatever that means. Yes. Because a doorway is only, what are they? A bedroom doorway is not 36 inches wide. What are they, like maybe 30 inches wide? And there were 2 very large adult men of different races. And they were all 3 in my doorway, and they all fit, and they did not look crowded. There was room above their head and everything. And Henry would never fit in my hallway. So whatever he did, it has something to do with the way that they move around.
Henry is about what, 8 or 9 feet tall?
Easy.
And what about the other?
And very broad.
And the other fellow was bigger than Henry.
He was comparable. I cannot remember which one was taller. He was more lanky, but he was very, very tall, and neither one of them would have fit in my hallway.
Yes.
They stayed proportionate. Yeah, it just seemed like a perfect, it's like 2 guys walking down a hallway. It was kind of cool. But Kathleen, it was like, oh, Henry.
And you had said too, they communicate with you either through thought bubbles, so a form of telepathy, and they could speak other languages as well.
Well, Henry started doing the thing where he would use my mouth, and I would say things that I had no knowledge of. And one time a friend of mine asked me, how do you know this stuff? And I said, I don't know this stuff. I don't know. It just falls out of my mouth. But everybody does that. It's good to pay attention to that. If you start saying things that you have no knowledge of, and you can go back and check and find out that it's accurate. The more you practice it, it's really an allowing. Yeah, it's an allowing, and I don't really have a word for it other than their words fall out of my mouth.
Yes.
And I've had
Well,
some other people do the same thing too. It's kind of a cool experience.
yes. Well, Jeff Rone, who was on with Andrea about a couple of weeks ago, said when they communicate with him, he said your concept of thought bubbles is really a valid way of talking about how he communicates with his forest friends.
Yeah, that's what happens with me,
Somebody,
Frank.
yeah. Somebody asked about that once, and they said, what does that mean? And it was, I said, I compared it to the old Spot books from like before I was even in school. See Spot Run. The sentence would be see Spot Run, but in a
Yes.
thought bubble, it would not just be see Spot Run. It would be Spot's entire life, everything that he's done and everything he plans to do. It's like big, and it might take you a little time to process it.
Sure, sure. Cindy, I'd like to.
Yeah, that's like when you're telepathing with extraterrestrials. That they give you a lot of information, and when you try to obviously speak it because you're trying to share it with somebody, you have to kind of deconstruct and find the right words, because it's like it's a feeling of the word, what the word actually means, or what the experience is, and words just don't cover. And
it has color and depth and width.
Yep. Yeah,
and history, and it might be 20,000 years of information in one little thought bubble. I've had that happen. That takes a little while to sort out.
It just sort out, right?
I bet. Cindy, I'd like you to share with Andrea and with the audience the experience you had when you went out to visit Kathleen and you were camping, and I believe it was the first night you were there, maybe a Friday night, and you heard the singing.
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up, Frank. I went out to visit with Kathleen and go camping at an area for a conference in September. We were in the Pittsburgh area, and it was I stayed with Kathleen the first night, which was, I think, was that a Thursday night, Kathleen, or a Friday? I'm not sure. And actually, I had a feeling somebody was watching me that night. But then we were at the campground. We drove there. Kathleen drove, and we were at this campground. And that night, we were by the fire. And Kathleen, you might have to.
There were 5 of us.
Yeah, you might have to fill in a couple areas because I tend to kind of forget it. But
there were 5 of us. We were just daydreaming around the campfire.
Yeah, we were around the campfire, and all of a sudden we could hear singing and bird sounds, right? And it was quite remarkable because everybody there, it was unusual enough that it just didn't sound like regular animal or bird sounds. It was unique.
It sounded like a cross between birds and opera.
Yes,
but it was one voice.
It
was so beautiful.
But singing, and it was very beautiful, and it lasted quite a while. And that was our first night. And then Saturday night, after a very interesting conference, remember, Kat? We and I won't get into that too much today, but that night I had this desire to go to this area in the woods near this big old tree. And we had been there earlier that day. A whole group of us went to this tree, and we left offerings and that kind of thing. And that night after the conference, I just had this desire, but I didn't want to go by myself. So Kathleen was off talking to somebody, so I didn't have the opportunity to ask if she wanted to go with me. So a friend of the group that I just met that night, I asked her if she wanted to go, and she said, "Oh yeah, well, I'll go." And then there was this guy that I had just met, Norm, and she asked him if he wanted to go. So there were 3 of us, and we went out back to this wooded area, and it was quite, I don't know, Kathleen, how far away? Well, it was kind of far. And we walked, it was daylight at the time. And this was in September, early September, right around what, the 5th, the 6th, right around.
Yeah, maybe a little later.
Yeah. And but it was early September. So we walked down towards this big tree. And it was really weird because I don't remember a lot of it. It was like I had this memory lapse, but I do remember looking up at the sky, and we're watching all these ships and different things happening. And then all of a sudden I hear fireworks, boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. And later, oddly enough, Frank sends me this meme with Bigfoot and fireworks. So we go to the tree apparently, and we're meditating, and I don't remember a whole lot of that, but we're walking back. And we're walking back to the campfire, and that's when the storm started to come. I think the storm came at that point. And when we got back, when we were going through, Tracy, one of the people I was walking with, Tracy, Norman, myself, said we were going to go through this portal. And we did. We went through it the first time, and then we went through the same way when we were coming back. And when we came back, they were ahead of me, and I felt this cold, icy feeling, and I kind of saw something shimmery. But before that, I looked up because I had said to Norm, is there's some kind of trail up there? Because it looked like there were beings up in this trail, way up in the mountain. And he said, oddly enough, there's an old railroad. I said, really? Because I saw red eye shine, like people were staring at us, and it was a foot, and they were looking at us, and I could see them. And I said, look, I see them over there. And then when we were walking back, we walked through this portal and cold, icy stuff. They didn't feel it, but I did. Then we get to the campfire, and this is where it gets interesting. And Kathleen says to me, and then I want Kathleen to tell her perspective, but we see everybody, and it's dark now. And I'm like, what's wrong with my neck? My neck bothers me. And Kathleen said, well, let me look at it. And different people were looking at it. And I had all these, like it was like, Kathleen said, it was like somebody whacked me with, what is it, stinging nettles? And it was all bubbly.
Yeah, nettles.
Very bizarre and really hurt. And so I'll let her tell you the rest of that part of it.
Well, when you got back, you thought you'd only been gone about 20 minutes, but it was hours.
Yeah.
Just hours you were gone.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, where have you been? And then that night it was raining. So we went to the tent, and that's when all the youngins came down, and they did a prank on every single tent.
Yeah.
It was something different for everybody. In our tent, they just flipped back the one roof part, so the rain came in on top of me, and I stuck my hand out to fix it. You know how you can feel when there's somebody staring at you?
Grab you.
I knew somebody was there, and I jerked my hand back, and I'm like, oh, I have to fix this because I'm getting rained. So I just took a deep breath and stuck my hand out there and fixed it and got it done real quick and went back to sleep.
Yeah, because
I can't remember what all the pranks were, but it was something different everywhere.
We could hear, well, with that part of it, but first I didn't realize I was gone that long, and Norm and Tracy didn't think they were gone that long either, but it was true. It was dark, and nobody heard the fireworks, although there's some kind of, I don't know, car racing thing miles and miles away. But, it was a week after Labor Day, and it was just so bizarre. And then, I had this weird rash that Kathleen said looked like somebody whacked me with stinging nettles. But then the next morning it was gone, pretty much gone. She also said that she had this.
Didn't we put some jewel weed on it?
We did. But Kathleen said she had this desire to go look for me. Like, where's Cindy? My friend's here from New Jersey, and she's disappeared. And then something told her, no, go back. Didn't you say that happened twice? So we finally come
Yeah,
back.
yeah. I got up and then I went and sat back down.
Yeah, and then the rains came and it was pouring. And it was about maybe, I don't know, 1:30. I go back to the tent. Kathleen had already gone to the tent. So she was already there. And she was sleeping when I got there. I couldn't open the tent, but I did. And I go in, it's pouring rain, and I'm laying there and I'm starting to fall asleep. But all of a sudden, I'm not alone. And I sat up. I sat up in the tent and I'm like, I'm not alone. And that's when I heard the giggling. I heard this low, like kind of a grumbly, and it was more than one being, and they were giggling. And then I'm sitting here, I'm like, whoa. And I was kind of like spooked in a way, but at the same time intrigued. And I'm like, they're freaking outside and they're giggling. And they weren't human. They weren't the humans, because I know they went to bed like 2 hours prior. It was very early in the morning, but maybe around 3:30. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting up and it is pouring rain and there was wind, but this was before it got really, really windy. And all of a sudden I hear like, and what they did was they took the spike and they took it out of the ground, and the flap to the second layer of the tent flapped open and you could see it was like a window. And I'm like, whoa. And I'm looking and I said, Kathleen, it's raining. And she woke up, but I didn't tell her what I heard, but she heard the giggling as well. And that's when she went to fix the tent because it was on her side. And she said she had a feeling that somebody for fun was going to grab her. But everybody had an experience that night. But I saw eye shine. I had missing time. Apparently we were gone for a few hours. I thought it was like 40 minutes. It was very interesting. And we heard fireworks and nobody else heard. So it was very interesting night.
Cindy, if I could return to the singing once again, you said the singing was about 10 to 12 minutes. I was wondering, do you feel that you had received any downloads during that experience?
I think we all did, actually. I think we did. Um, and again, we had the conference the next day, and I had this impulse and this desire. I had to go back to the tree. And I didn't know why, but I was going back. I didn't want to go by myself, but I was going back. And yeah, so it was quite an experience. But yeah, I do think I got a download, and intuitively I think the whole thing with my neck, and I have pictures of that as well, and Kathleen was witness to it, as well as other people that had been at that fireside chat that night. I don't think that somebody did it in a negative way. It was like somebody was detoxing me. That was the gut intuitive feel I got, that something was released from me, and not the other way around. If that
and everyone heard the singing that night?
Oh yeah. People
Good.
the fire did, right, Kat?
There were only 5 of us.
There were only
Right.
Yeah, there were 5 of us, and it was so beautiful that we literally just stood there dumbstruck. And even when it finished, we just stood there and nobody said anything for the longest time.
Yeah. It was
Good.
beautiful. And the next night we didn't
It
hear
was beautiful.
It was beautiful. But the next night when we went to the 3 of us went to the tree, the ancient tree, we didn't hear the singing. We heard what sounded like a bird, like an owl, like a hoo-hoo, but then it was like almost a tropical bird sound. And that's when I looked up and I said to Norm, is there a road or something way up in that mountaintop? And he told me it was an old railroad. And that's when I saw like 3 different beings, and I saw eye shine. And then
Wow.
we time.
Kathleen, could you make out any of the words in the singing? Could you make out anything that sounded familiar to you?
There were it was absolutely foreign. It was just so, I cannot describe how beautiful it was. I've never in my life heard anything. It was like the song was like a wave that just flowed through me. It was just so beautiful. I wish I had
And,
words for it.
and Cindy said it was a female voice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah, without question. Definitely female, no question. Yeah, I guess there's a woman a woman foot lives up in her family with her kids. Oh, obviously it was her kids that were doing the pranking.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, but she was doing the singing. It was very beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. If I would not miss an opportunity to go there again.
Wow. Are you planning to go back and return?
Spring.
Yeah, in the I think we're not going to do it till the fall. In the
Okay.
spring, we're going to go to Cooperstown, and in the fall, we'll go back down there.
Did any of the
It's a lot
campers?
it's a lot to set those up.
I bet. Did any of the campers have any animals with them? Were there any dogs there?
Mhm.
There usually is. I'm sure there was.
There was.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually just dogs. Yeah.
How did they
The first time
actually?
I saw Henry, I had my dog with me,
Mm.
and he didn't seem to notice. The dogs don't really care.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know why.
I was wondering, do the what kind of houses do they live in, the Bigfoot? Or is this villages or
They don't really talk about that. I know they go underground a lot, and the structures that we see are usually signage.
yeah.
Or and then because they were out behind my house for a long time, and I go up there sometimes, and they did weird things with oak trees that would hide them from the sky. I'm like, why would they be hiding from the sky? And then somebody told me, well, because all the satellites, they figure out where they are and they laser and blow them up or burn them up.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been really struggling with keeping their population up. And right now, for the first time in remembered time, they're increasing the population
Yeah.
on purpose
Yeah.
They were being murdered.
Yeah.
all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and then they go into help. Like if there's a big forest fire, whether it's natural or not, doesn't matter. Anytime there's a big fire, they always go to help get some of the animals out,
Mm-hmm.
as much as they can.
Jarro.
And a lot of them get burnt. They get burnt that way too. Yeah, Jarro got burnt doing that, didn't he? Yeah, Henry did too. They don't like to talk
Yeah.
about it when they're hurt.
No.
Oh, wow. Now, do they go down and live with the people who live in inner? Do they go into the inner societies and meet with them?
I have no idea. I just know that I know how the community structure is. It's a lot like the Amish. They don't have, obviously they don't have jails. The rules are the rules. If you don't like the rules, you go to another community, just like the Amish. You go to another community where you like the rules. It keeps it simple.
Hmm.
Make the best of what you have. If they have a problem, they'll get together and deal with it. But mostly it's just go where you fit in. If you don't fit in, that's okay. Move along. We have Amish that drive trucks. We have Amish that don't have guns. It just depends on the community. Every community makes their own rules. It's the same as the indigenous. It's the same exact thing. It's not magical. It works.
Yeah, that's what we need to do instead of everybody being lumped together in this some kind of forced society.
Super cities. Yeah, that's what we need. Super cities, not.
We need to get rid of.
Well,
I would say we need to get rid of centralized. We need to get rid of governments. We need to just let everything go. That's fine.
Kathleen.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Remember that night with the tree when we had all gone to the tree? Remember the lights that we saw? You want to talk about that real quick?
I think that was from the race. Well, I think that was from the racetrack.
No, that was when we thought that was one of those.
I didn't see what you guys saw.
Huh? No, with the lights.
I didn't see anything.
You didn't see that with the lights coming down?
Oh.
That you thought it was a commercial?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah, because a lot
I saw the lights going. I only saw the lights going up, and I think that was the racetrack. But you guys saw a bunch of stuff and heard a bunch of stuff that we did not hear, but at the fire.
Yeah. No, we saw something different, but anyway, it was very interesting. But yeah, so yeah.
Kathleen, what is it something that you feel that the forest people would really like to convey to us that is a great truth or some revelation that we really should be aware of?
That we are the same. We have the same feelings. We have the same thoughts. We aren't We aren't different. They just have more hair. And they feel bad that we lost our hair. And they refer to that when you lost your hair, when you lost your hair, when you lost your hair. They feel sad for us when we get cold and have to wear all those clothes. They're incredibly well built for this planet. They're very sturdy. We are not.
Yeah.
I get my mail. I got to put a coat on.
Yeah.
We're very fragile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Henry says that all the time. You break. So he's afraid to even touch me because he's big and he thinks I'm petite.
And Kathleen, I like when you say that once you've had an encounter with one of them, you're kind of like tagged energetically so that other clans will recognize you're not a threat.
And when you go places, you will know when you will know when somebody's around. The more you meet, the more you will meet. That's just how it works. And it turns out the same with the elementals. Once you meet an elemental, which is incredibly amazing, I recommend everybody to apply themselves to bump into at least a couple. You'll get to the point. I'm to the point now when even traveling down a highway, if I come anywhere within range of an elemental, it's like wham, they come in like a wave. It's kind of like a happy, orgasmic kind of joy thing. Wow. They're all a little different, but they're all kind of the same. In the energy, as you raise your frequency, nobody can keep their frequency up all the time because we waver all the time. But as your frequency goes up, even my lows are not as low as they used to be. They just keep, as you add more connection, and connection is the key. As you add more connection, it just slowly raises your vibration and you don't go down low. And then you add more connections and you don't go as low. And then you add more connections and you don't go as low. So one thing leads into another. It's unavoidable and pretty awesome.
I believe it.
Well, that's something I've discussed with upstairs is just like, once you've had for me, it's just ET experience. But once you've had contact with off-planet people, it's just what you described there, Kathleen. I mean, it just changes. And it's I think it's so hard for your average Terran to understand what this feels like because there's nothing here that feels like this.
No.
I've never been near
the whole point is for them to the whole point is for them to have the experience.
Yeah.
It's right there. All they have to do is want it.
Yeah. I think your average person isn't even cognitively, this is way out of their sense of reality. It's like, I think it's got to come right into their face.
No, there's more and more people every day.
That's true. It's true. But I overhear conversations in the grocery store and the post office now that it's more and more people, even the ones that you would never even dream are awake, are starting to notice things. They're tapping into their intuition. That's where the magic is. Wow. They're paying attention they don't understand that they're doing brain waves, but they're doing it. Like, oh, I'm hitting the zone. Think about a runner, the zone. That's the magic, man. Everything happens there. Yeah. Wow.
I think Cindy, did you want to say something, Cindy?
Oh, no, I agree. I'm right with you. Yeah, no, I'm just listening to you, but it's all about connection and communication, and as our frequencies, as we're ascending, as our frequencies are elevated, or the density, it's changing, we're able to see a lot more. And I think your average normie is starting to see the same, and they're like, oh, what's going on here? But
yep,
people who have been so-called awake for a long time, we're used to it. But now it's commonplace, really, I think, or it's becoming commonplace because of the frequency change, which I think is a good thing. It's where we want to be, as and even talk about bells and the frequency and the vibration of bells. People are talking about bringing bells back, and how beautiful is that? But the foot are just, as Kathleen has said, and Frank as well, they're our family. They are our family. But there's all different kinds, as Kathleen mentioned earlier on. Just like humans, there's good, bad, and ugly. We're going to see that, and they're a little pissed off. There are some that are kind of pissed off with what our different corporations and governments have done to their land. And although they can come and go, it's affected them as well. And then you have people stomping in the woods and military and different individuals that are trying to attack their tribes and their community, and it's not cool. So I think we all look forward to that changing, and for us all, at some point to be able to interact with them. And I do agree with Kathleen and Frank. It's coming. It's coming. It's really here now. Just have to open our eyes.
Very well stated, Cindy.
Oh,
thank you.
That's gorgeous. I think that's probably our finale for this evening. And of course, I would love to have all of our guests back on again. And we have Jeff Rone coming back, so I'm sure we'll get some kind of, in our cauldron, we'll be able to mix up some kind of dangerous brew of our next meeting. So this was absolutely brilliant. I want to thank everyone for their time and spending their time with us this evening, who are watching us and definitely sharing their own experiences as we talk here. And we want all of those viewers who are excited to come forward and come on too, just like we're on here tonight. And I want to thank Frank for finding these amazing people, this is your job, and you've been doing it for a long time.
You're too kind.
He's our archivist. And I want to thank Kathleen and of course Cindy for sharing their evening with us and these beautiful stories. And definitely, we're looking forward to part 2 of this.
And thank you, Andrea. Thank you.
Your new thing. And Ika is all excited too. This is very warm for him. He gets a chance to be with family, which is, his job is very stressful. And it's anytime he can to kind of come and relax with us, he loves to do that. So it's beautiful stuff. So, all right. I want to then always say abundance, blessings, and joy to our guests and to our viewers always, right? So cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.